are still there. Usually when there is just a few people in the room, that you can consider it's a bad news, but it's in fact a good news because it's really the people interested by the topic. So that I consider this as a positive sign. So I'll speak about the power of ecosystem. We spoke a lot this morning about ecosystem, that the person from TSMC or SMIC that explained that the ecosystem are very important. Everybody speak about ecosystem, and that's true that ecosystems are extremely important. So I will explain a bit why we need ecosystem. We'll look rapidly at a few examples and what it means that building an ecosystem around FD-SOI, that the technology, the new technology as Giorgio presented this morning. So one of the key reasons of why ecosystems are important is because we are no more a passive consumer. Now that when we look at the way we were buying electronic appliances a few years ago, that 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, we were buying more or less a product that the electronic companies have designed based on the chips they got from the silicon vendors. Very often we were using devices which were not really the device that we would like to have, but we had no other choice. Now the things have completely changed. The way the products are designed is completely different. The consumer that had the power to influence the product we want. And even in some cases that clearly to fund directly that the companies or the organization designing the product, making the product. There is a big change as well, that the opportunity to do things by yourself is extremely important now, that it's quite easy, between quotes, that to design its own product. Because there is a lot of small boards, systems that at very low cost that you can buy and customize for your own needs. And there is another thing, which are the 3D printers, which allows you even to do some casing, some models. So basically, with a few hundreds of dollars, that you have all the capacity to design a complete system by yourself. And the other thing which is extremely important, what we see, is that the system, that there is no more that this kind of barrier that between the corporate domain and the personal domain, that now you can bring your own device at your office and work with it, that somewhere even the boundaries that of corporation that are going away, because you can bring any device more or less, between quotes, coming from your personal world in the professional domain. So basically the role that the consumer has regarding the product is completely different. The other thing is what I call the technology eclipse, not the technology that you need to take this very nice picture, which was the last eclipse last Monday in Guadeloupe. But because when you will look at the way we were doing things before, we were technology driven, meaning that we had a lot of user needs and the technology was not able to fulfill all the customer needs. And somewhere it was, I would say, a bit comfortable for the silicon companies, that because we were in fact in control regarding the new application we could enable. When we look at the history, that we enabled the HD TV, for instance, because we developed chips which were enabling the capacity to decode HD stream. Before that, for sure that you were able to build a system able to decode HD stream, but having something which could be a consumer product, that you really need that to have the corresponding silicon in order to do that. Now things are completely different. It's completely the reverse. The technology offer is extremely large, extremely huge. For sure, there is still some user needs which are not covered. But now we are usage driven. And that's easy to understand because the technology offer is so large that it's quite easy to take pieces and to assemble them to really create a system. Somewhere, it's a good news that because we can create a lot of things, for sure we have to be usage driven because we can create things which are absolutely useless for the people. The bad news for the silicon companies that a lot of things could happen without us. This means that we can have a lot of application we could emerge without the control of the silicon industry, because they just pick up the different chips which are available or the different solutions which are available, and the people have the capacity to build things completely different. We saw that when I was in STMicroelectronics, that with a small board we had, that people develop things that we never thought that they could develop this type of thing with a chip designed initially for the mobile. So on the other hand, the people have the capacity to change, in fact, the original objective of a given device to use it in a complete different domain. This is another big change that where we are now. The other thing which is very important is that there is big change in the value chain. That before it was quite easy, that the value chain was well ordered. We had some few players with clear business models, that it was very virtuous in the sense that one layer, what the value that for the above layer was really the core competencies of the layer below. So it was quite easy, and each company was clearly focusing on its core competency. So that I wouldn't say that the business was easy, but the understanding of the business ecosystem was quite easy. When we look at how it is now, it's completely different. That we have a strong move that of the actors in the value chain. They are covering some actors that are covering different level of the value chain, which means that for silicon companies, for instance, it's a big difference, because before we were talking, in fact, to the companies, to the electronic companies developing the electronic appliances. It was easy that because we were discussing with those people, they had some requirements and we were fulfilling the requirements, delivering the chips, they were making the system, it was quite easy. At the end, what the customers that really, what was really the consumer that we didn't care, that because we were just discussing with the people doing the electronics system. Now it's completely different, because some of our customers are directly in contact with the consumer. So that this means we are not so far now from the consumer. The consumer is close to us. This is a very big change that in the value chain. The other thing which is very important is that now when we look at the content, which was something that a bit ignored before, just think about the way that internet was managed 10 years ago. You had webmasters managing the website, putting the content on the website. Now this time is over, that you put the content on the website, that all of us, that we put content on the website, we generate the content, that some webmasters are still existing, but globally the internet content is generated by us and no more by specialized people. The other thing is really that to increase your business surface with ecosystem, that because now what we see that for sure that we're used that to have very big customers that well identified. And this still exists, that I'm not saying that there is not big customers, that there is still very big customers for the silicon companies, but there is as well a lot of small customers. And these small customers are extremely difficult to attract, especially that in markets which are extremely fragmented. That if we are talking a lot, and I saw this morning that some people mentioned that, the e-health market, for instance, when you look at all the marketing survey, that it's a multi-billion-dollar market for sure, all the new markets. But when you look at for a silicon company that how to catch a piece of this cake, it's extremely complex, because you are not able to identify a major actor in the domain with which that you are able to grab maybe 5 or 10% market share. It doesn't exist, that you have a lot of small actors. And the ecosystem in this case that could really help in really acting as a vortex and really able to capture all these small actors in order to create bigger players somewhere, that to do some aggregation that which could help you to really target this type of very small actors that which are almost impossible to catch for a silicon company. Basically, that we see that e-health is a type of market. We see home automation is this type of other market where the fragmentation is quite high. So that's what we see for the market that where fragmentation is quite high, and for market for which that the barrier to enter this market is not so high in terms of, I would say, electronic content. Because very often for the e-health market, that for specific sensors or these type of things, you need to have very dedicated electronics. But after that, you need a box able to gather data, to do some computation and so on. And you have plenty of solutions, so that you have to make sure if you want to enter that market that the people developing the box are using your solution. And this will not happen just in providing basic silicon. That it's extremely difficult. So now, if we look at a few examples that of this ecosystem, that one which is, let's say, the most well-known by everybody, I'm sure that it's App Store and the Google Play. This is extremely interesting, that the way they created really a very, very strong ecosystem around their solutions. And I think this really ecosystem are extremely interesting, that because there is one rule which is extremely important when you want to create an ecosystem. You have really to ask yourself the question that what's the value you want to put in the ecosystem. An ecosystem never works if there's no value inside. So when you are a company that you decide to create an ecosystem, you have to ask yourself the question, what is the value I'm ready to leak in the ecosystem, that makes sure the ecosystem will have a chance to survive and the people to have interest to be in that ecosystem. Because if you want, for instance, you develop a board, you tell the people that, okay, you have to use that board because it's very nice. If they don't see how they could do business with it or what the support they could have from the people developing this type of system, they will use another one that they don't care at the end. So really that was very important, the way they did things that on the App Store and Google Play. It's really, they really put in place something where there is strong value in the ecosystem and the people have interest to enter in the ecosystem, because for sure it's making money for the Google and Apple, but it's really as well making money for the ecosystem. Another ecosystem is the ecosystem of small boards. This morning, this has been mentioned by Ganesh, that for sure that you have plenty of boards. I just put some of them there, but there is a lot. There is 1,000 boards existing. And this is really the place where you have no control at all as a silicon company of what could happen, because the people buy a board on the internet and after that they do something. Sometimes you could see maybe an application really emerging that and really starting to generate high volume. You don't know. But for one application which maybe could do that, you maybe have 100, 1,000 applications that are still generating very, very low volume. So that's one thing. The other thing is that a lot of small volume that at the end is making high volume. That we haven't to forget that it's good to have 10 million PCs customers, but 1 million customers at 10 PCs is the same volume. So that's and in this case, the margin is not at all the same. So that's it's a type of things we experience, for instance, in STMicroelectronics, that with the microcontroller market, which is extremely fragmented and for which we have a lot of very small customers. And for sure, we put an organization to manage that. But we are able to do a very interesting business with extremely high number of customers. The silicon industry, that this morning we had a presentation from TSMC, and it was quite interesting that I took just an example of TSMC and ARM. It's extremely interesting that to see the semiconductor industry, if you want to be successful, that's not because you have the best process of the world that you will be the king of the world of the semiconductor industry, that you need to have a lot of things around. And when the thing which is interesting, when I build the slide, that the remark I did, that thing that there is just kind of 3 pillars in the ARM ecosystem, and you more or less find the same 3 pillars in the way TSMC is organizing its ecosystem with IP, design, and process, and manufacturing, access to manufacturing. This is quite interesting, and it's because there is a very strong ecosystem that you can have a chance to be successful. That we are convinced that without an ecosystem, it's extremely difficult, because you have to generate interest for the people, for the CAD vendors, for the people developing IPs. They need to have an interest that if we want that those people develop or port their IPs on our technologies, that if not, it doesn't work. They will not just do it because it's nice to do it. So once again, in this type of industry, that ecosystems are mandatory. That's very clear. I could have taken a lot of other examples. There is plenty of examples everywhere that I'm sometimes discovering ecosystems in areas that you don't even think that we could do an ecosystem, but now it's really ecosystems are really almost everywhere. So the last part is that how to build an ecosystem around FD-SOI. That the presentation you had this morning, that I hope that showed you that FD-SOI is an extremely promising technology, that it's extremely important for ST for sure, but more globally that for Europe, because when we look at the semiconductor landscape in Europe, ST is now the only European company with the capacity to develop very advanced digital technology. So that FD-SOI is really the unique opportunity for Europe. And I think that we cannot miss it, that we have to be successful with that. So to do so, that for sure, build an ecosystem around FD-SOI is not something which is easy, because as has been demonstrated this morning, that it's somewhere a disrupting technology of the SOI, so that it's something which is a bit different from what we used to have in the past. it's clear that if we want to have really a big dissemination of that technology, we need a lot of people to disseminate the technologies. And once again, the ecosystem is mandatory. That ST can do a lot, and for sure that we are extremely active to make promotion of our technologies. And we have our design-ins on that technology, for sure. But it's not enough. That's not really enough that if we want really that to move the technology at the level it has to be. And one thing which is interesting, that because I found a white paper that written by Cisco a few years ago, and they were clearly mentioning that ecosystem-based innovation is mandatory and absolutely key for the collaboration, integration, and growth. That was extremely interesting. So what are the key ingredients to build an ecosystem around FD-SOI? That's clear that you have to address almost all the aspects from really IP silicon technology up to really end product. That's if you are really a big hole in the chain, somewhere something is missing and the complete system will not work. So basically, that when we look at all the things that we have to provide in the ecosystem, that all the things we have to assemble to create this ecosystem, we identify more or less all the aspects that you have from the silicon up to the release, the end product, or at least demonstrators, application boards with demonstrators. To do so, that we plan to we submitted a project at the last ENIAC call, that project called Things to Do, which will be starting beginning of next year for 4 years, that 4 years time project. That's me. It's 4 years time project. And clearly, the goal of this project is not to develop technology that is the case in the Places to Be project, which has been started beginning of that year, for which the mission is really to develop 28 nanometer, 28 FD-SOI and 14 FD-SOI. Clearly, the goal of that project is really to develop the ecosystem around FD-SOI. So meaning that gathering in the same project, people providing IPs, CAD tools, application, design methodologies, software, and a lot of different people. And clearly to use the result that coming from the Places to Be project. And to be as large as possible in order to really create or to put the seed in place to have the capacity to have this ecosystem, European ecosystem emerging around the FD-SOI technology. These are the partners which are in the project. So the project is still now in the finalization phase, so that we are still discussing with some partners and with the European Commission and the ENIAC office. But basically, what's important to see on this picture is that you have almost representative people from all let's say, all the topic or all the subject that you need to address if you want to build a complete ecosystem. You have research centers, design house, application company, you have even other silicon company, that you see there is NXP and Global Foundry, which are part of the project. You have a lot of company in the CAD domain. You have people in the application domain like EADS, Ericsson, Cassidia, and Sorin. Meaning that we are really addressing. And when we look at all the application domain that we are targeting in the project, it's quite large. That we have application ranging from really embedded health system or portable health system that's up to application for avionics, for instance, with the EADS. So that we are really having a spectrum which is quite large for that project. And clearly the goal is really to make sure that the people are developing IPs, validating IPs on silicon, developing the methodologies that are going to take benefit of this FD-SOI technology, because as Giorgio explained, you have to manage somewhere this capacity of body biasing at the transistor level in order to really put the cursor where you want to have the performance versus the power consumption. And this is something which is really quite new. And if we are very clever to manage that, so for sure you need to have the tools, you need to have the technology, the tools. It has to be managed manage at application level as well, that because the application has to be aware that when we will need a lot of performance and then to put the system in a state where it will be able to deliver the performance, and on the other end, when we want to save the power because performance is no more needed, that's really to change the state. So that will be all the partners that which will be part of the project. So there is around close to 50 partners, close to 10 countries involved in Europe, so that's quite large European project, and I hope that will be quite interesting. So, as a conclusion, that a lot of change in the IP and silicon industry, making consumer closer to us, I think this is something that we cannot now ignore. We are no more isolated that from the consumer, and this I think that it's somewhere a bit changing the way that sometimes we should address the way we market our silicon device, because it's not just for us a matter of discussing with the electronic and the electronic companies that making the product using our silicon. We have as well now to start to understand what are asking the customers of our customers, that what are the expectations, that what we can do for them in order to help our own customers to sell their solution. It's no more something that we are just discussing with just one layer above in the value chain. We have really to understand the complete value chain and to understand and to be able really to understand the needs from other actors in order to be able to better serve that our own customers. That the game is clearly changed. Clearly, ecosystems are no more an option. That I'm personally convinced that without an ecosystem, that will be extremely difficult to have a new technology, a new solution, a new whatever that to emerge. It's very, very clear. It's, as I explained, extremely important for the market where the fragmentation is very high. Ecosystem is really a tool to access this type of market. So we have really now, as I said, the experience in ST that with a microcontroller, and we see that it's extremely powerful. That's to have this type of ecosystem. And once again, that I think that we have a unique opportunity in Europe with FD-SOI. We cannot miss it. That we have really to do all what we can, all of us, at any level, to make sure that this technology will be successful. It's not because I'm working in ST, for sure. I'm working in ST and I want the technology to be successful. But it's larger, that what is at stake is much larger than just the technology for ST. Is make sure that in Europe, in the future, we still have the capacity to design very advanced system using very advanced digital technologies. That if not, I think that the only solution we'll have will be coming from the other side and maybe from US in the future, I don't know. But clearly that we have a unique opportunity, and it's really a key step where we are now, that to make sure FD-SOI will fly and it will work and will be very successful for all of us.